This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so welcome to the meeting. Didn't figure out I muted everybody. We will do somewhat of introduction. So we do have a sign-in process here online. So we've got everybody's names. But as far as officials here, so everybody knows who we're talking to, I'm here, the mayor. I'm here with the clerk, Rodney. We've got the police chief, Joe. We have our trustees, all of our trustees except Ed Morton. And we have Officer Winchell from the police department. So we will get started with the meeting.
Hey, Mike, Ed Morton is here.
Okay, hey Ed, Ed's here. Thanks, Ed. I didn't see you in the list. All right, so I prepare a little presentation here. We'll go through the presentation. And then at the end, we'll have public comment, basically, or discussion. And we'll limit it to a couple of minutes each, like a regular public hearing. State your name, address, that kind of thing. This will be recorded and posted to YouTube. And the link will be on our website so that anybody can watch it at a later date. Kick it off. Get this thing out of my way here. All right, so background is Executive Order 203 says that we as a municipal government with a police force must by April 1st review our policies and procedures, promote community engagement, foster trust, fairness, and legitimacy, address any racial bias and disproportionate policing of communities of color, create a plan to modify any of the above based on input, offer the plan to the public for comment, and ratify and adopt the plan formally as a board. The steps we're taking to complete this process. So we have reviewed every procedure within our police department. We actually were working on this prior to this executive order coming out. So that is complete. Officer Winchell has helped us greatly with that, along with Rusty, our police commissioner. We did a community survey, which is complete, which the results are in this presentation. The community engagement meeting is happening right now. Our next step after the community engagement meeting is to develop a draft plan, much like the county did. We're gonna do that by the end of February. And then the draft plan will be available at the end of February. And we'll review it at the beginning of March. And then we'll adopt the plan by the end of March after the comments to meet that April 1st date. So a little background, community policing, which is kind of the goal of this whole thing, is a system where the police work closely with community members to solve problems together. The goal is for the police and the public to work together to prevent crime and solve problems in the community. Some things our OPD already does, at least from the survey and just talking to people fairly well, pretty transparent. We have a school resource officer with the Owego Appalachian School District, so that's a good relationship. Our OPD does frequent demonstrations at our schools on top of the school resource officer. I know they're always, when there's not COVID, going in and doing presentations and hanging out at the elementary school and stuff. And then we have a lot of events like Pops with Cops, and I know they go to various scout camps and all kinds of stuff to do interactions with the kids in our community. Next slide is just some pictures of those events. Recently we got a K9 too. She's a nice dog. She's kind of a, not an attack dog. She's a pettable, people person kind of dog. Trained to sniff out narcotics, but other than that, she's a real nice puppy. So our community survey, we had 110 people respond. The respondents, we collected some information on their demographics. I listed these here, just thinking these were relevant. So 68% were Village of Owego residents, 37% work or own a business in the village, 11% own apartment buildings within the village, and 77% of the people that responded have children. First question was, please rate your satisfaction with the services provided by the Owego Police Department. And as you can see by the results, everybody can see my screen, I assume. But as you can see by the results, majority of those responses were positive, very few negative. How do you feel about the following statement? The Owego Police Department treats people fairly. And again, most of those were positive. We did have about 10% in the neutral area. How do you feel about the following statement? The Owego Police Department does a good job fighting crime. And actually, most of those are positive at the somewhat agreed to strongly agree area. I won't read this again, but it defines community policing and asks how you feel about that above statement, which is the same definition I gave earlier. And almost all that was positive. In the past, so this was interesting because I just thought this was interesting. We asked a couple of these kind of questions in the survey. In the past 2 years, have you or someone else on your behalf called the Owego Police Department because of a domestic or family dispute? These are people that took the survey. 92% of them answered no. I think that's a lot of what the police go through. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. This was another one of those questions. In the past 2 years, have you called the Owego Police Department needing help because you or another person were in mental health crisis? And of the 110 people that took our survey, 92% said no. I know that's kind of a hot topic nationwide. I was interested to see that number. How do you feel about the following statement? Police should be sent to respond to people in emotional distress or mental health crisis. Looking at the numbers here, the majority of respondents agreed with that statement in some way or fashion. There was 9% that strongly disagreed. How do you feel about the following statement? Police should be sent to respond to people with drug or alcohol problems or people who have overdosed. And that was even more overwhelmingly agreed. How do you feel about the following statement? The Owego Police Department treats people from all walks of life equally. And that was, again, mostly agree. We had some people neutral. 14 people out of the 110. Which of the following areas do you think the Owego Police Department needs more education, awareness, and/or training? Again, hold on. Put the mouse, sorry. The winner here was none of the above at 45%. The other ones are spread out within understanding people's culture, understanding people's identity, understanding people's backgrounds. Communication skills was the second highest, and then other. So, and for any of these that had other, I actually have all of the responses. I copy and pasted them in here. Again, transparency. This is exactly what we got back on the survey. I don't know if I want to read all these, or I'll just leave them up here for a little bit, and I can read a couple of them. And this presentation will be, I can put this on our website, and obviously it'll be in the YouTube video as well. And this is the same question, the other category. All right, so this was a fill in the blank question. What things do you think the Owego Police Department does well? And again, all of the fill in the blank ones are here, so there's a lot of them. I won't read every one. But you can see somebody putting community policing, keeping in touch with the members of the community. They know the residents well and handle the situations accordingly. They're present in the village on most days, so they're visible. There's a couple that are nothing, you know, poorly trained and expensive liability. This is the same question. What do they do well? You can see the differences in responses here. These are exactly copy and pasted, so I didn't type these or spell any of this. It's still the same question. Still the same question. And we got this one a couple of times about assisting our other first responder, EMS and fire department, so that's really good to see. And there's common themes, you know, involved in the community support, outreach. I think those are all good things. Still the same question. What do they do well? You'll see a lot of the same themes. Again here, same thing. And here's the end of that question. All right, here's the opposite question. What could the Owego Police Department do better? And again, all these are here. And there's a pretty wide range of responses. Everything from merge with the sheriff, everything to seatbelt checks. I would say a common, just from looking through all these responses, a common thing might be more speeding patrol. I know that's been an issue before. Again, patrol streets, whether in cars on foot. Increased staffing and availability, that's more of a budget thing than anything. These are exactly copied in here, so catching speeders on Route 38. A lot of Route 38's not in the village, but still that same question, what could we do better? Parking came up in this batch.
So, Mike, this is Ike Lovelace. As you know, we own a business downtown, and I'm sorry I'm coming in a little late. On the parking side of things, it's, depending on who you talk to, there's pros and cons to all of that. Like when Lake Street was closed, we at the Owego Kitchen did some of our best months ever. However, people's 2 cents are that, parking's an issue, parking is an issue. However, at the same time, many of the times the issue is the business owners themselves are parked in front of their businesses.
Yep.
So, I would take that one as a grain of salt. Also, the village lot right behind the Owego Kitchen, you drive through there at 10, 11 o'clock at night, you'll see 20 cars in there. Those same 20 cars are in there during the day. Clearly, those are tenants and things like that from the buildings above. So it's a tough balance, I think, that they struggle with down there. And all in all, I think they do a fairly good job there.
Yep. So we're going to have, you came in late, but we're going to have a discussion once we get through these next couple of charts.
Okay.
All right. Get my thing out of the way here again. All right. So we got a couple more of these. Now, it's the same question. What could they do better? And you can see the differences in responses here. Again, if anybody wants to read these in detail, I will post this presentation. Same question. Same question. An interesting one here is a community watch. That could be an interesting idea. I know we've had it before. And this is the last slide of the what can we do better question. All right, so the next slide is discussion. We'll do this like a regular public hearing. So if you'd like to speak, that's great. You can, I'm trying to think how we can do this orderly. But we'll limit it to a couple of minutes. Definitely state your name and your address so we can log it down. And obviously this is recorded. We'll have this up on YouTube. So.
May I begin because my phone is dying?
Sure.
My name is Laura Rod Young. I live at 105 Chestnut Street. I wanted to begin, we are talking specifically now about the Executive Order 203 from Governor Cuomo. I have a couple, just since I'm only given 2 minutes, I did watch the Tioga County meeting that they had that was supposedly for the community as well. Nowhere in it was there listed the booklet, a link to that was supposedly available for citizens to read since August 2020. My I'm just going to read this. One of my greatest concerns was that the public wasn't really given the link to that official document either by the village until Thursday or Friday on an unofficial Facebook page of the village of Owego. In my opinion, my humble opinion, this was given to our village officials, you, Mayor, and the office, August 2020. It's over 100 pages long. People work, people have lives. We were given less than 2.5 days to be prepared as citizens, as informed citizens for this meeting tonight. The meeting did run in the paper of record, which is the Tioga County Courier this week. The Courier, however, does not go into the mail until Thursday afternoon. It's not delivered until Friday at the earliest to villagers. Some villagers, I get mine on Saturdays. So once again, if I wasn't looking, if I didn't know, I wouldn't have seen it. And if I didn't get the Courier, I know as well it ran in the Penny Saver and on Weibo, so we don't have to discuss that at all. I would like to know when the police department was made aware of the meeting tonight, when they were officially invited by the mayor to come. Anytime there is a chance for especially our wonderful police department that just a few years ago was gutted and it was nearly destroyed and taken over by the county. Anytime we can get resources to our police department or improve it in any way, it is our obligation to help them. Here's what I have to say about that. This doesn't concern the Executive Order 203 from the governor is not solely concerned with the race issue. The other thing you need to be made aware of too, Mayor, is I believe it was minute 17 of the Tioga County meeting. The sheriff actually came out and said that you as an individual had called him, as the mayor actually had called him and asked that the sheriffs possibly step in using aggressive force during the peaceful demonstration for the BLM. Just so you know, you can check that out later. It's my 2 minutes. But that was said during minute 17. This executive order isn't just about color. If you actually take the time to read more than the 100 pages, it is talking about diversity within our community. Diversity comes in many forms. It comes in transgender. And we have the LGBTQ community here. We have people who are autistic. We have people who are mentally ill. Nationwide, including here, and I can prove that very easily in an editorial I will write. How many more people are reaching out to mental health people? Mental hygiene is not taking any more cases. They're overloaded. People are under COVID suffering from anxiety and mental disorders that they never thought they would experience in this lifetime as they handle the financial crisis. Okay, that's another thing. We have autistic kids within our community. We have elderly people who are facing a new portion of their lives. Some are having Alzheimer's, whatever. How I feel that this really could help our police department is getting them the tools to recognize this sort of diversity. Since I have been home and moved back from North Carolina, I've had my home on Chestnut Street almost broken into 3 times. Twice, I had to call the police. It was a person on drugs looking to break into my basement to steal things. The 3rd time came when a man came to my door at midnight just a few days ago demanding money and help. He was clearly mentally ill. Here's the thing, what I did not like in the Tioga County community thing. Mentally ill people or people having episodes or crisis due to stress or anxiety were deemed violent and almost the same as drug abusers. They were deemed insane. That is not fair. It is not true. We have also within our community itself 2 domestic violence recovery houses. We have 2 halfway houses for drug addicts. These people they're clean now. They're having issues. We have autistic children. We have racker houses. We have all of these things. And I know a lot about autistic children because I have to, because they're in my family. I know what a seizure looks like. I have to because it's in my family. I have friends who have schizophrenia. I know what that looks like. But I've had massive training on that. This is an excellent opportunity when orders like this are actually taken seriously, and not given out days before, but taken seriously by our board of elected officials. It can possibly open our community up to grants on the federal as well as the state level for improvement to our men and women who go out there and serve and protect daily. We are giving them tools to do their job better. Taxpayers do not want to pay increased taxes here. Our OPD is recovering from being assaulted, being almost dismantled just a few years ago. Yet we are cutting them off at the knees when we do not follow through ourselves as citizens, but more importantly, as elected officials, allowing basic information to get to citizens in a timely fashion. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Let's see. We have anybody next?
Is anyone going to respond to her?
What's that?
Is anyone going to respond to Laura?
They don't have to answer now, but I'm glad this is being recorded, and I really will put it in writing. I want answers to the questions I asked. I'm going to open it up to somebody else, so I had my 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Adam Young. I'm from 22 Fulton Street. So I'm originally from Rochester, which has made national headlines this year, and it's not for race. The national news, it made national news for mental illness, as I recall. So we have to think about that too, right? I know BLM is rightfully getting a lot of attention, but there are other things. Learning how to de-escalate, getting that kind of training that we have to worry about. And I think that actually one of the best things about this is that we are open to criticism and introspection and thinking about what we can to be better. So I think that makes us different than so many other police departments across the country. And that can open us to opportunities. So thanks.
All right, thanks. I think Chief Kennedy was going to make a response on Laura.
Yeah, this is Chief Kennedy. I just wanted to excuse my voice. I'm having a little issue, but I really appreciate your support, Laura. We are doing training issues, and we have a local insurance company, NYMER, that we do a lot of training through that our officers are assigned. Their anti-bias training, duty to act and duty to intervene training, de-escalation training. Now, some of this stuff is new and some things have changed on it, but the police department's been doing some of this stuff for years. We also have just finished, probably about 2 months ago, we did an autism training. We're looking into doing excited delirium disorder training and stuff like that. So our department is, we do have a very limited budget, obviously, and the mayor and the village board have been very good about trying to increase that. And we have increased our training budget, and we keep an open mind and try to do as much as we can. Obviously, COVID has put a damper on some of that as far as in-person training, but the internet's been a great source of help to us for that. And like I said, our insurance company's doing that. So if you have any follow-up questions, go ahead. I'll mute myself.
Well, I think my only follow-up is, once again, I'm the biggest supporter of OPD. Your officers responded to every single one of my 911 calls with under 3 minutes. They actually chased the drug dealer down out through my yard who is trying to break into my basement. My sole purpose as a resident here is to make my village the very best it can be. I love how OPD is open to looking at itself and saying, how can we improve? Every single human being alive should be asking themselves that every single day. If you don't change and recognize that the world is changing around you, your community needs are changing, you will stagnate, you will die. My sole purpose is just to try to take as seriously as possible every single opportunity in the form, for example, of this Executive Order 203 to get more resources for our department, our police department, for better training, for more training. Once you get one grant, everyone knows this. It opens you up to better equipment training and so forth, maybe more officers. When we take things seriously, we ourselves are taken seriously. That's my point. And I thank you so much for your service. I couldn't ask more from OPD other than I know you are undermanned, understaffed. You could use new equipment, and you guys don't get paid enough, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Laura. And as far as the publicity of the meeting, I mean, we can put out press releases if the press doesn't pick up on it, depending what's going on. Then a lot of people don't know about it. Just kind of how it works. Sometimes they
Well,
call me.
we do have a paper of record just because I work there. We do have a paper of record. It is the Tioga County Courier. We could attempt to maybe put something in 1 week prior. Once again, it goes to press on Tuesday. It doesn't get mailed out until Thursday. It doesn't get delivered till Friday or Saturday to residents for a meeting that's on Monday. We can do better. We can put it in 1 week earlier. That's all we need to do to make more people aware of this so we can have more community involvement, like you said, so we can build community and build bridges. Thank you.
All right. All right. So next, let's say see Irina's hand up.
Mike, can I make a couple comments?
I
Let's
can
let
wait.
Irina do hers.
Is the person wanting to talk, are they responding to Laura's comments? Because I can wait if it's a reply to her. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple responses to Laura's comments.
Okay, Fran, go ahead.
Yeah, Laura, I agree 100% about the quality of our Waco Police Department. I ran as a trustee for the board 3 years ago because I was totally frustrated with what the destruction that was happening to our police department. And I think that Chief Kennedy has done a fantastic job of building it back up, and we recently did receive a very large federal grant, which is allowing us to hire more officers. Another comment I'd like to make, I wonder if we can't somehow work with the drug rehab centers in the village as far as when there are when our police department responds to drug problems, if the rehab centers might have people on call that could help with the situation, if requested by the police department.
I think I'll let Chief Kennedy answer that, but I think some of that does go on, Fran.
Yes, Fran, there is some of that, and it's not official yet, but I've actually started a program. It's kind of a silly acronym. It's called CHAIR, and it's Cops Helping Addicts into Rehab. And we've already had a couple people that we're working with. We talked with a Cody out of Binghamton, and they've actually come down here probably 4 or 5 times and picked subjects up and took them back to Binghamton to get them housing or get them a safe place to stay, at least showers, clean up, meals. With bail reform, unfortunately, even though a lot of people are going to see this as a bad comment is when we put some of these people in jail before they had the chance of sobering up and maybe seeing the light and getting some help through the corrections facility, we don't have that option anymore. So thinking on our feet, we tried to figure out something that we could do that maybe wasn't implemented years ago and makes sense now. And that's this program trying to help these people. So it's in the beginning stages. We haven't made any announcements or had any definite structure to it, but we have talked to several agencies. And like I said, the Binghamton agency has come out at least 4 times and dealt with 3 different subjects here to assist us.
All right, I think, Irene, did you want to? Yeah.
I
Go for
did.
it.
My name's Irina Rea. I sent my address privately in the chat since this is being recorded. I first off wanted to start by saying that the chair acronym is great, and I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm going to loop back to that. But the first thing I want to do is I really want to highlight the difference of this engagement versus the county level engagement we had 1 or 2 weeks ago. So I love we got to see transparent results of the community survey, of the village survey. We did not get to see that at a community level. I recognize there probably is more input, but from an official, from Mayor Barada, showing us that result, that's awesome. And we did not get that from a village level. I am part of the group We Go for Equality, which was downtown in front of the courthouse for over 100 days this summer. And if you watch the Zoom call with the county level, the sheriff, and I'm paraphrasing here, but said essentially that there was no need for him or his people to be there because we weren't violent. And I responded that there was a need so that they could build a relationship with part of the community that needs one with the police, that needs to feel seen and have that engagement. What our OPD did differently is they were not hostile, they were not standoffish. They often came by to engage with us. And I believe Police Chief Kennedy and the Mayor, Mike Barada, had a meeting, or at least one, with my friend Luca Yorga, who is also on this call, about police reform over the summer. Again, that is something that the village did not do, that the county did not do. So those differences are really important. And so I'm going to loop it back to the chair idea and go off of Laura's comment about how we can be better about communications, essentially. And I think that either if it's due to staffing or just how things have always been done, I think that our village police department is pretty parochial in their digital outreach and how they reach a younger generation, essentially. And I think that while we are miles better than the county level response, I think we can do even better. I think that it would be beneficial to build trust with the community, and particularly if you want to engage the younger voices in the community, to have an active and aggressive digital outreach. Like that chair acronym, that program that you're building, that is what people, like from We Go for Equality, that is what we want to see. We want to see that type of engagement. We want to see that connection to what we can do better. We want to see that acknowledgement that even though we are a small town, we are connected to a larger national conversation on police reform. And I would never have known any of this if I wasn't at this meeting. And I wouldn't have known about this meeting if I wasn't searching for it, because I'm plugged into this issue because I've been doing it the whole summer. So I really think that some time and some consideration should be paid attention to make sure that people know that this is happening. Like, I don't think people under 40 read the newspaper regularly. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying that there's so much good that's going on. And I'm super psyched to hear this because I was really put off by the county level engagement. And this is so much better and so respectful. And it is not putting the onus of reform on your community. You already engaged with us, you responded to us, and I really think that we can continue to do that and do that better. So that's my communications prong. I really think that we need to have digital outreach because what's going on is great, but I have a couple of questions following up on mental health. I would like to know if at any point publicly this can be answered so people can know about it. What type of mental health services are available for our officers? They have a tough job. It affects how they engage with the community. What kind of services do they get? Do they have any type of screening process before they join the force? Is there a routine examination for PTSD? And if they don't have it, can we get it for them? Like it's a crucial part. Mental hygiene is a crucial part for our officers as well as our community. And the last thing tying into communication and transparency, if you watch the county level call, Sheriff Howard said there was over 3,400 hours spent on training. What I would like to know is what percentage of that 3,400 hours was spent on de-escalation, on racial bias training, on community outreach, on community policing. What percentage of time and money is going where in terms of kind of having a conversation instead of just being a brute force presence? And I was wondering if at any point, or if that's available to view for the village level. Because I didn't have a chance, like Laura said, to read the 140-page document, but I did my best, and in it there is a quote of shifting the narrative of policing from a warrior who engages in a battle against their community, which is what I would say that the county is doing, and the attitude of the sheriff. And then there is the attitude of someone who's having a conversation with people they want to protect. And that is very much the tone that I get from the village. So I would like that showcased, because we can set the tone for the rest of the area if this is visible. And that is how we shape that is how we contribute to the national conversation about institutionalized brutality and racism. So again, thank you for not having the response that the county had. And I know that we're doing great, but we can do even better. So I hope to see more. Thank you.
So I have a little bit of an answer, and Chief County probably has more. I know last year or the year before, it's all a blur, but we did add an employee. I'm trying to think of the term. Well, we had an employee resource for like counseling and whatnot for all of our village employees, actually, mainly because of the police department. And I mean, when you have EMS and fire, they deal with a lot of stuff I wouldn't want to deal with personally. We've had some pretty interesting accidents, and these people go through a lot.
You finished with that, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to follow up with that, obviously there's testing and stuff guys have to take when they come on the job, and they actually have to get a mental evaluation. Now I don't get to see the results of that. That's all done with a doctor. We do get a recommendation and some numbers on some things, but that's about it. As far as assisting officers, I've been a police officer for 27 plus years now. And in the beginning, it was, oh, you guys are tough guys, you don't need this. And that changed at some point, obviously. You can only put so many marbles in a cup before the cup overflows. So we all deal with things in our career that build up. There's a program out there called NILEAP. It's New York Law Enforcement Assistance Program. My brother is actually part of that in training, and we've applied some of that here on different things that happen. We, as the mayor said, have some incidents that most people don't ever deal with that we deal with several times throughout our career, and that's being conservative, obviously. So yes, we do have things to help our officers, and we realize that that's a need. We take care of ourselves before we can take care of everybody else. And I'm sorry if I'm missing part of your question.
It's okay. It was a long question. I appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate you not patronizing me when you answered, because that is not the tone that the county took. So thank you for that. I just wanted for clarity to ask again, is there interest in making what you're doing behind the scenes more public? Because like you said, when you joined the force, this was something that didn't happen and wasn't talked about and was probably heavily attached to shame. Like we didn't talk about mental hygiene 40 years ago, and now we do. And I think that it would be one, it would be humanizing for the community to hear about it. And I'm not saying to disclose personal records. I'm just saying if people knew that our police department took mental health seriously and even applied it to themselves, I think that would be a great relationship building tool. So is there interest in having more of a public focused, front facing messaging to show all of these things that you are doing that we don't really get to see from the police department?
Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute there. Yeah, obviously we can't disclose incidents and stuff like that, but we would have no problem, saying what we're saying right now with this program that, officers need help. We all have families. Everybody has family problems. Everybody has work problems, and these places are out there to help, and all the officers are made aware of that. And the public may not be, but with no issue in telling that. I just don't know what platform it would be appropriate to bring it up other than something like this and community members asking questions.
It sounds sort of like you might, and again, I understand that funding is always an issue, but that sounds like you might need a communication wing of your department. And I don't know if that's ever in a budget, but the chair is a opportunity to make very public something great and something, I know this is a dirty word sometimes, but something relatively progressive in the county. I think it's a great effort, and I think people should see it. So maybe there could be an effort to consult how to best portray that to the community, along with everything else that should be visible that isn't. Because I think that would do a lot to shift the narrative from warrior against the community to guardian of the entire community, which is what is in that booklet. So I think that would go a long way.
You're more than welcome to make an appointment with me, come in here and talk with me anytime, and we can discuss any of this stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see, do we got Kevin? You got your hand raised?
Yes, I'd just like to go back to Ike's point about parking. I think unless you have a dedicated parking officer, you're always going to have a parking problem. If you have a dedicated parking officer, you can find out A, whether you can enforce the current laws, B, he or she can be a conduit of information back to the regular police department, and looking to the future might be a good idea to look if you can enforce current laws, maybe getting parking meters so that you enhance village income and maybe enforce parking in a less structured way than having a police officer or a code or parking officer do it. I guess I'd kind of like the chief's opinion on that because I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
Guys, I would add to that. So I know we go back and forth about the whole parking thing, and it's been going on for years and years and years. When I worked downtown 30 years ago, we had a parking enforcement officer, and that's all he did. And I think that he managed that process pretty well back then. I think we got away from that because we thought it was the right thing to do. But I don't know that having, as Ike pointed out, numerous business owners parking in front of their businesses and then complaining that we don't have parking is conducive to running the downtown effectively.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you.
might chime, I'm sorry, I cut in the middle of the conversation while we were still doing the slides, Mike, so my apologies.
Oh, you're
But
fine.
yeah, my 2 cents on that is, again, we did some of our biggest months ever when Lake Street was closed and there was no parking. And I think it's not a parking issue as more as it is a parking perception. Um, for whatever that's worth, but it requires effort. You see, I'll skip the guys at Van Horn. They park halfway down Main Street and walk back to the village, so they're not taking spaces up. And, we have several apartments down there as well. It's a function of, hey, folks, there's other places you can park. County employees park in the village lot right behind the kitchen there in the Court Street parking lot. They've got their own parking lot. It's stepping up and saying, excuse me, is it too tough to walk across the park and, go to your place? Why are you parking in the back? But, that requires
Mike,
us.
can I comment on?
Yeah, by all means.
All right, Joe. Hey, this is Chief Kennedy. Rusty Fuller's with me. He wants to address something with this real quick. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Rusty.
Okay, so I'm Rusty Fuller, village trustee. I know that this doesn't make a lot of our merchants, who I am one of, happy to hear that we continually put off parking things, but we have through the DRI grant some $600,000 to do parking and parking lots downtown village. We have not addressed parking recently in the last little bit because we've been waiting for that grant money to come in. We have plans to involve the whole community and work on our parking situation, our parking lots, our parking decisions. So we are planning to do that, and I'm sorry to put you off on parking, citizens, but we are putting you off, but we're getting ready to do that.
Hey, Rusty, part of the DRI is also lighting, is it not? And public safety?
Yes.
So, Mike, I don't even know if you're aware, but the village lot behind the kitchen, the lighting back there has not worked for several months. So in that parking lot, it's pitch black. And I'm sure, Chief Kennedy and the public safety end of it, that's an issue, as well as I'm sure Laura, I see there too. The 2 or 3 lights at the tail end of Lake Street don't work. I would hope that a piece of that would go to properly lighting, because anywhere I've been, around the country where there's lots of vibrant downtown is, well lit areas. People feel safe coming to, no issues. We at the WeGo Kitchen, we light the alleyway there, and we pay for that ourselves. And the thanks I got was one of the other merchants suing me for creating an unsafe condition in the alleyway, to which it only cost me $2,000 to make the lawsuit go away. I would hope that that is being addressed, not to mention, I don't know, Public Works or whoever it is would take care of the municipal lighting in the back of the Court Street lot there.
Yeah, so one of the DRI projects is, like Rusty said, parking, and that will include everything, lighting. I'm sure we'll look at a lot of stuff. I don't want to get into it, but probably electric car charging stations and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, I believe part of it was also signage, which I know has historically been an issue for any of the public lots.
Yes.
I think it was a signage, lighting, relining, having engineers come in and set up the parking. What's the most efficient way to park?
Yeah, absolutely. As bad as parking was when things were closed on Lake Street, any day you wanted to, you could go park behind John's in that public lot because people don't even know it's there. But, if the village certainly could, light their own lot that has all the poles and everything else that are there. I don't even know if you're aware they were out, but that parking lot behind the kitchen and next to the county, it's completely dark.
Well, we'll get with Jeff and figure out why all the lights are out. But yeah, and some of those big holes, that's the reason, is because we're gonna repave all those lots soon, as soon as we get all this DRI stuff moving, which will be very soon. And yeah, we gotta dig that whole lot up behind you, like to do a sewer line replacement, so.
I can't wait for that, by the way.
It's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Mike,
But that does solve a long-running issue that isn't part of this meeting.
Right, yeah,
Long-running issue.
very long. Charles, you got something?
yes, I was gonna just add to that. I can get with Jeff tomorrow and find out if that's on a list of issues and problems with lighting, that if he's aware of it, and if not, if he could do something about that before the next
Yeah,
storm hits us.
seems like if they were working, maybe it's just bulbs or something easy.
Yeah.
Joe, you got anything parking related you want to talk about?
No, not to put anybody off, but I don't think this is the right venue for that, and I don't want to, waste the other people's time that are coming on with not talking about our reform stuff. Not that I don't have some ideas, because I do, but we can talk about that later if you don't mind.
Yep, that's totally fine. All right, who wants to go next? Luca? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, so I kind of want to get back to the reform part rather than parking, but I think the reform should really be more of an ongoing project, and I think it's really, really encouraging that we're trying to do this. I'm very
Hey guys,
grateful.
there's a lot of feedback. Can we like everyone who's not talking mute or something? I can't understand.
I think most everybody is. Let me mute mine.
It might be my microphone. I can try to turn it up, which is no problem. Is it better now? Oh, okay, so I'm gonna try to just keep talking. Please somebody let me know if there's any audio issues. But I really think that we should have an ongoing community review component. I'm sure that there would be people that would be happy to volunteer with it. I very much appreciate that OPD was still willing to meet with us and to communicate over the summer, including Chief Kennedy, and thank you for that. But I think it's obvious from the survey that a lot of people have different opinions, and an ongoing engagement could add a lot of value. And will provide an opportunity for measuring metrics and shaping things in an evidence-based way, because I've seen a lot of opinions thrown around about how things should be done or how things ought to be done. And circling back to the council meeting, for example, the sheriff should be maybe back when we were not, like occupied in jail, which to me seems ridiculous because
Hey, Luca,
yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I heard about 3 words out of that whole thing. I don't know what. It sounds like you're on an airplane, though. You got some sort of bad feedback.
I can try to switch which speakers I'm using. Is this any better right now? I muted my speaker. Did that change anything?
Not really.
Okay, I might just try typing in the chat window. It's less personal, but I'm sure everybody can see the chat, right?
Or I can read it. That's fine.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to capture what you have to say. It's just that there's so much feedback. It sounds like a racetrack in the background. And this is a good forum, so we don't want to let this go to waste.
I don't know. So there is a chat. If everybody looks, depends what kind of device you're using, how you get to it. If you're on a computer, it's up in the upper right.
So maybe let's let Luca type hers, what she wants to talk about. And I guess we could move on, or, if we want to wait until she's done and address hers all at once.
Yeah,
Could
we
I
can.
ask that after she's done typing, someone, Laura, maybe you could do it, or the mayor could do it, read what she types, because I can't see what she's typing.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So just read back what she types. Thank you.
All right, so you want to read it, Laura, or you want me to? Doesn't matter.
Sure, I'll read it. So Luca apologizes for the technical issues, and she wanted to thank OPD and Chief Kennedy for being more willing to engage with us. However, I really think that, based on the survey, there should be more of an effort for ongoing community review and for measuring outcomes to ensure that we're using the best evidence-based approaches possible. And we can wait for more.
Just want to voice my support for Luca's idea. I think a community reform board is a great idea. None of this can be addressed in one meeting.
I was just hoping to, I didn't get, when did we have the mailing out to people? For so few people to respond to a questionnaire, generally they come from one demographic, and depending on how it was mailed out, where it was printed, whatever, you may be hitting the same demographic again and again, which is not giving you a clear or varied group of people. So I'm just wondering if very quickly you could just tell me where this survey ran and how people got it back to you.
Yeah, so as far as the survey, we followed the county's lead, I guess let's say. They did a Survey Monkey. So they actually did a Survey Monkey for us because they have a subscription. So we ran a press release of how to get to it. It was on our website, and they were available for pickup here at the office.
Okay, just following up on that, when did that happen exactly? And I never heard of Survey Monkey, but when did that actually happen, that you ran in our paper of record that this was available and people did it?
It was in December. And it ran for, the survey was open for about a month.
And we ran that in the public of record, letting people know it was there?
Yep. Yeah, we did a press release. We ran it to the Courier, the Penny Saver, WEBO, WBNG.
Okay.
Everybody.
WEBO is one of those things, unless you're a certain demographic, you don't listen to it. And the Penny Saver I love because so many more people get it and it's free. But thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it greatly. So it ran in December for something that was released so back in August 2020. So I appreciate that input.
Okay, I'd like to go back to Luca, her statement, reading it aloud. So she says that based on the survey, there should be more of an effort for ongoing community review and for measuring outcomes to ensure that we're using the best evidence-based approaches possible. The county meeting included the sheriff complaining that so few beds were occupied in the jail, and shouldn't that be the goal, reducing crime? So I think we really need to work on how we're measuring things and what policies have which effects. Otherwise, we're just spouting opinions and throwing out meaningless numbers. I'd also like to see an analysis of whether the arrest and jail occupancy rates by demographics match the county average. Because the county meeting more or less sounded like we're primarily white, so we're not racist. My apologies for overly simplifying for the sake of brevity. There has also been a reoccurring theme of punitive policing, where it seems like putting someone in jail is treated like the reward for police effort. And that's the end of the chat currently.
While Luca is typing, I kind of want to tag team and say that that is the type of stuff that should be front facing and easily accessible to the public. that is exactly what people want to see and want to know in terms of transparency.
Okay, Luca continues. And I think that should be further scrutinized because simply having taken up officer hours does not warrant jail time to make everyone feel like the police payroll was well spent. That's what court and a judge and jury are supposed to be for.
I'd like to tag team that on saying too, even in national news, we are in a pandemic. The hot spots in our country are jails. What the sheriff's department also came out against was how people were getting, they didn't have to put up bail to not be filling his jail cells. Okay, a lot of people cannot afford bail. And even if they're innocent, they will sit in jail waiting for their hearing. This is a socioeconomic social justice issue. And more importantly, the sheriff's department had no right in a regard, in a way, to comment on the Justice Department and what they were doing regarding bail. Our jails should not be seen as a cash cow to make money. And especially during COVID, where your most vulnerable people could possibly be put in a hot zone. That's all I have to follow through on that. I found that very disturbing on the county level, that the jail cells were seen as a place to make money, and there was no recognition that the jails are one of the hottest sites for the spread of COVID in our nation currently.
Okay, to finish Luca's, she says, that's all I can think of right now. Sorry again for the audio issues. Thank you for the opportunity to say all this.
Thanks, Luca. Chief, do you have anything about any of that?
Well, again, this is the village, not the county. We don't have a jail. I can't comment on the sheriff's thing, but I got to stick up for him in one respect. It's not a money making. He's not looking at it as a money making thing. And bail is not set as a punishment. Bail is set to you're supposed to scrutinize it and find out, okay, what's the chances of this person coming back to answer his crime? And if there's a good chance that you're a local resident and you've been dealt with before several times, unless it's a really, really, really high level crime, chances are you're going to get an appearance ticket or a judge is going to say you're released on your own recognizance. The bail is just to make sure, hey, okay, I know it's a hardship on you, but here's, $2,000, which you will get back if you show up to your appearance. It's not made to keep people in jail. Again, I'm not a jailer. I'm not the sheriff. I don't run a jail. The sheriff also, has a big road patrol that is responsible in the village and the county. And so again, I can't speak to what his meaning was, but when it comes to the bail reform and him talking about that, I think what he's saying is his beds are empty because, we had somebody that committed 3 burglaries and got released on each one and went out and committed another one. Now, if that's your house and you want the guy breaking in to do that, then that's all well and good. We'll all have different opinions on that. And yes, I believe bail reform probably was needed at some point. Maybe not as much here in our local community. As far as I know, we've never used that for punishment. When an officer could actually set bail, it's set forth by New York State criminal procedure law that says the maximum that we could set for each thing, and it's not really high for what we could set it for. So we're all going to have differing opinions on that. I guess we can still talk about it, but the sheriff's got a tough job up there, and I just don't want to leave it that he's just doing that to make money, because that's not what he's doing.
Can I interject at least just to kind of speak about possibly the sheriff's issue with the jail? From my understanding, this is Officer Pike, we go police. I think that the jail, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Chief, they have to be staffed for a certain level. And I don't think that was really addressed in the bail reform. So I think they're still staffed at that like higher level of inmates, but they're not seeing those higher level of inmates. And I don't believe that the state has corrected the mandate as far as staffing to reflect the lower level in inmates. So I think that's where the sheriff was kind of hemming and hawing at the budgetary issues as far as the jail goes.
Yes, that's correct. I think he said he had 110 beds. So even if he has 2 inmates in there, the state requires the sheriff to have enough officers to take care of 110 beds. So if you get 1 person in jail, again, not the sheriff's fault, this is a state mandate, he has to keep his staffing up to the level that could take care of if there was 110 people in that jail.
Thank you so much for that explanation. That was not at all what was presented by the county. And residents, once again, I had no idea. I've read that nowhere. I've asked that question from the sheriff's department. Thank you so much. You just gave me a huge amount of information to process.
So Irina has her hand up. Go for it.
Hi again. Sorry for taking up so much of your time, but you're making it really hard not to comment on things. So I want to go off of what Luca and Laura were both saying, and again, looping it back. And I have a question for the police chief, and he does not have to answer that now, but as an example, if this bail reform is problematic in terms of money not necessarily well spent because of state requirements, that directly ties to what Luca is saying to see whether or not we are having the best practices based on evidence. And that directly ties to what Laura was saying about how it is basically like a parking ticket for people who can afford it and continues a cycle of poverty for people who can't. And what I was saying is that I think it would be beneficial in changing that if we heard these conversations from local police. Because as you can see, you can stand in front of a courthouse with a sign for 100 days and not get the sheriff's attention. So maybe this type of messaging needs to come from fellow officers, because these are really great points, but they're not necessarily being heard coming from us. So if it's a problem, and it sounds like it is, bail reform is causing citizens problems, but also smaller police departments problems, and even larger county ones problems, then that should maybe be publicly addressed by our police departments in a way that constituents can see it, in a way that people who make decisions on that can see it. And so that's kind of how all of these 3 things tie together in terms of evidence-based policing, forward-facing publicity of community policing, and a recognizing that some things that aren't working should be talked about and that your community wants to see that. So thank you, and I wonder if you agree with that.
I'd like to just add, Luca added in the post, I'll read aloud. The sheriff also specifically replied that the crime rates don't seem to have changed after the bail reforms, so I'm not sure what the actual problem is. Especially once you factor in budgetary concerns, it should be cheaper for taxpayers once those details get sorted out to not have more occupied beds. End of statement.
So just to touch base, and I don't want to keep this going forever. And again, not defending the sheriff. This is from my point of view. But there's other issues when you have repeat offenders that sometimes has absolutely nothing to do with poverty. I have known people that have done this. I've not to bring myself into it, but have a couple known family members that a long time ago was into this and just do it to do it, not for any need or any reason other than that's what they enjoy doing, and you're putting people's lives at danger. And the other issue with the bail reform is when I get into the chair program stuff, if we have somebody who has a drug issue and we stop them and they have drugs on them, and recently we've had some very hot loads of fentanyl going through, and we've had several people that have passed away. And overdosed. And we've had plenty of opportunities to lock up the person that is distributing that fentanyl. Unfortunately, he's back on the street, and at least 3 people have died because of the product that's out there. And the people that have died, even that we have Narcan, our officers have done CPR on, and we bring back. It happened one night, we do it. The next day, the guy ODs again, and we're Narcanning him again. He's refusing to go to the hospital. And we're dealing with these people over and over. And that person, unfortunately, is probably going to do it again. And we're not going to be there. Somebody's not going to be there to call us to help him. So that person may have gone to jail and had the opportunity to detox. And maybe, or maybe I'm not saying that it would be a great outcome, but I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a great outcome either, and that person may have had the opportunity to get into a rehab program or something from jail instead of overdosing again the next day, putting our guys at risk and putting them at risk. So that's the issue when some of the bail reform wasn't thought through. And again, we could go on forever and ever on this. I'm going to end it right there for now. Thank you.
Thank you for doing all you're doing, truly.
So does anybody else have any comments?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so I did read through the booklet, and I tried to write down pages and the references so that we can better build our action plan. One of the things we talked about was the design of public space, which includes the lighting and sort of the broken window theory. So for us to include in our plan how we're working with the DRI program to address the lighting and in areas where citizens would like improvements. We could possibly create a channel where the village is funneling this so that we can address like the parking to the parking committee, street lighting stuff to DPW, and so that people aren't just saying, like, hey, the police need to take care of these things, that like the governing body does more for support in our design. So there's that sort of draws back to another thing further down that I'll get.
Just on the lighting topic too, one thing we did a couple of years ago that we don't want to lose track of is we switched all of our street lights to LED, which are insanely brighter than what we used to have. So that's a good thing.
Yep, that really lit up the town.
Yeah.
So there's diversion programs that I was interested in, where our like officers get more discretion in warning people that they see that they're getting into trouble, where it's a warn and release program instead of like jailing them up right away, so that they can sort of see the youth, or if they see people having mental health problems, that they sort of can guide them into help, or before they do get into heavier crimes or things like that, because we are, community policing, and that's part of that discussion where they can trust the officers. So there's the possibility of like advisory boards or committees for parking, and those that was like listed in the document. Page 56 had some municipality that moved code enforcement into the police department, so that because crime isn't the only concern, right? So if there are buildings that are unoccupied that homeless people or people who are doing drugs are occupying, and people have been complaining about that there's more code enforcement help and tickets to address those areas where there's blight and stuff. And we have the capacity to make these changes, you know, DPW for lighting, and we have code enforcement and stuff. So like it just sort of can possibly answer more of the public's concerns about like who gives tickets for people who are not shoveling. Because people are upset about people not getting tickets for parking, people not, like why don't people get tickets for shoveling? But I also don't want to see people, like some people can't do it. They're physically, you know, old or can't get out. And so can we have like a caring committee where some of us can address to make sure that they get help and that repeat offenders can get ticketed? And how can we put it into our policies that were helpful and not hard in caring for our citizens? If there's like abandoned cars in our parking lots that we've had for a long, long time, that they do, like, I had my car on the street way longer than the period of acceptability. Somebody called in and the officers did call and have me move my car. I've had my grass grow long, had to weed whack it instead of mowing, you know. These are like code enforcement things. Who gives these tickets, you know? So it's just, these are like sort of friendly communication things that we can do that that are, you know, ticketed items. Page 71, there's this sort of idea of how we keep up our communication. And so they suggested an annual community survey where you're measuring the level of trust. With the police, you collect negative feedback and you check on your effectiveness of strategies. And the village, we still have money left over in the survey thing from years past. And so this is something that we could try to do every year to get a gauge on how we're doing and what public opinion is. Then there's transparency in our interactions with the public. And one of the things they suggested is sort of business cards. Major cities use the cards so that people can get access after like stop and frisks to like body cams and stuff like that. We don't have like, because we have the community policing, it's more, what I think would be beneficial is if we pay for our officers to have these business cards that they can give out whenever they have an interaction that says how you can contact them if you have more information, if you need to, if you're reporting a crime and you remember something else, you can call back and let them know, or you would even have like a record of who pulled you over, it's just helpful for our communication and trust that like you know who you're talking to. Let's see, there's they suggest non-enforcement contact and activities and conversations. And one thing that I talked briefly to the chief about in the past was the Cooper standards, which it's like the officers can have voluntary participation in keeping up their like physical like running and like the physical shape for engaging. And the village could have like a reward for it. So like a $500 reward for an officer who would take place in that and engage with the community while they're doing it. So I would definitely be willing to help out in creating like some sort of event where, you know, we could time them running or have a relay race against the officers with like particular members of our community, whether you're trying to reach the youth or certain teams, like if you wanted to say, you know, race against We Go for Equality members together, you know, in a team. Or yeah, different organizations just for fun. That would be, you know, just a cool like community engagement style thing to do. There's some other things, but I do think there was a lot of content in the booklet that we can apply that doesn't take a lot of money because we were really lacking in our discretionary budget here for the village. And if we just apply some of the stuff we already have in a better way, I think it will better suit our community. Thanks, guys. That's it for me.
I'd agree. I mean, we already do a lot of that stuff, but maybe we can do it more of it or a little bit different or whatever.
I would
Mr. Mayor,
like
if I could.
something. Anybody
If
hear me?
anyone wants to race against the village board, I think that's a pretty easy win.
Yeah, I got asthma, so I'm down, like, gonna be on the ground pretty quick.
I'm 5'4". I can't catch anybody.
Only if I'm being chased.
I will
I
say,
do have a response about like the shoveling and whatnot, lawn mowing. I think part of the concern is that the community should be also helping the community. I mean, like I know when it snows, I snow blow half my street because I have a snow blower and my neighbors don't. And I think not only in the police or the board's point of view, but neighbors should know their neighbors and know if you have that elderly woman next door who may be ill, or I just would really urge our residents to be mindful of those around us and engage in that conversation. Even though it is COVID right now, I understand that concern. But the more we involve ourselves in the lives of those around us, the better community is going to be.
Yeah, I'm in that. And I think Laura's suggestion of the caring committee, you know, while that's not necessarily the core topic of this meeting, I think is something we maybe should explore, because I think it makes a lot of sense. And particularly where, you know, where someone, you know, who's elderly, who can't plow their driveway or their sidewalk, and there's not a neighbor near enough who knows them, and, you know, they're just leaving their snow piling up, and everybody thinks, well, they're a bad person. That's not necessarily the case, you know?
No, I just hope that they're comfortable calling the village saying, hey, I can't do this, can you help me? And we should be able to respond to that, whether it be a board member, a police officer, whoever, DPW, but I think we need to really help out the community in that regard.
What's wonderful with, what's wonderful with snow removal is Tioga Opportunities for the Aging right over there. They actually have a list of volunteers. It's something like this. This is what I mean. It already exists. And people can call over there if they have spare time to volunteer and say, do you have an older person that needs shoveling? The other thing I had with snow removal is we have stores that they had no parking in front of them, like Kitty Corner Antiques on Main Street. They are the only place that raises money for animal rescue in Owego. They do all of the animal TNR, yet we can't have people unload there or pick up there because the snow removal took over a month after the December snow to even clear the street in front of that building. They are a business, and there's no place. It's right on Erie Street in Maine where people could park and even walk to cart. And the last thing I wanted to address is that on my street, what I found the officers had a real problem with, there are multiple streetlights completely out. I'm in what's considered a compromised neighborhood. We know there's a drug house 9 houses down on Spencer, yet the streetlights are out. I mean, if we could just do an inventory too, a simple inventory with DPW, what streetlights are out, and let's get them up and running, because it's great to be on LED and have stronger lights. But when you live in a neighborhood where there are drugs 9 houses away, you need to be able to see, especially for the safety of our police officers as well, what's going on. So that's
So
it.
Laura, if I can interrupt you.
Thanks.
So what you're talking about is almost like the report a pothole kind of thing, but for where you feel there's outages in streetlights or that kind of thing.
Right, and what I find would be helpful too is, I mean, it was clearly a problem for the police officers involved as they're going through my backyard towards Fox. That, I mean, there were no light. You can't see. So when a police officer notices too, make a note of it. When a person calls, or, you know, I'm not calling directly the mayor. That's not the official way to go. I will actually write an email so it's public record to say, hey, my street is unsafe because the lights are out. And I live in a I live in a high drug populated area. But yeah, I agree, like some way to reach out to the community too. Hey, what streetlights are in your neighborhood are out? Do you feel safe? How can we help the police help us in this most basic way? Because it's great to be LED, but when you don't have lights, it's kind of worthless.
I'd like to add that maybe I was not heard earlier. I will get with Jeff of DPW and see if there is a list of outages that need to be taken care of right away or in the future. Especially being shorthanded, it's very hard. But I will be on top of that. I will do that tomorrow, so that issue is taken care of. Further, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Chief Kennedy, Officer Winchell, Officer Pike, and the rest of OPD staff, past and present, for the job that they do. It's not easy, especially with the budget and with the manpower that we are given for the village. It's a hard task, and they were willing to help and get this village back to where it used to be. When I initially ran for a trustee, my main objective, besides the drug issue, was to make sure that our police department did not disappear. I am happy to be a part of a board member in this village that felt the same way in the need for our police department, and we have thus far successfully accomplished keeping them. And also, I'd like to thank the village residents who felt the same way, felt the need for police presence in this village. I promise to do everything that I can, and I'm pretty sure our village members will also do whatever we can to make sure we listen to our community and find out things and ways that we could improve our police department so that our village residents will remain safe. So that's all I wanted to make sure that I got that part in. Thank you for your service, and we're behind you 100%.
Good comments, Charles. As far as one second, Irina, just the street lights go, we do have a contract with the company we bought them, SmartWatt. So they are supposed to service and fix them. So we'll get a list of them and we'll get on them to start fixing them up if any are out. Now,
So maybe, hey, Mr. Mayor, maybe what Charles mentioned and would be most effective would be to have, if we have the ability for residents to notify us when those things are not working properly. You know, if 2 weeks go by before we know that there's a light out, because none of us have driven through there at 11 o'clock at night and seen that the light is out, it would be really great if we could get a way to sort of fast track that stuff, so that if someone calls in and says there's a light out at the corner of Temple and Spencer, we know that we need to get out there and fix it quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great idea. I'll bring that also to Jeff's attention, see if something we could do to set something up like that. I mean, I keep my ears and eyes tuned to social media, especially Facebook, because people like to complain a lot, but within those complaints, we find our problems that need to be taken care of. So that we can address that. I've been sticking to that and looking within that
I
form.
know Rodney just told me tonight about a service he watched a little demo on called Text My Gov or something like that, where people would actually be able to send us little text messages. So, I mean, stuff like that, like what we do with the Code Red with the emergency alert system, that costs us almost nothing. It costs us like $3,000 a year to run that system. So this could be something similar that's fairly low cost that could help, people get a hold of us easier.
Yeah, that would be, if that made it easier, that'd be great, I think. And I'd like to also echo Charles's comments about Officer Winchell and Officer Pike and Chief Kennedy's management of the police department. It's been a great couple of years, and that was not something that I saw coming a couple of years ago. So I think they've done a great job. I really do. Working with limited resources and limited manpower, they've done a great job.
I would agree. And I mean, for anybody on the call that doesn't know, last year we were awarded a COPS grant, which is a federal grant, which is huge. And we got one of the biggest ones around as far as to hire 3 full-time officers. So that's huge. Kudos to the chief, Team Tioga, who helped him with the county. And it's really great. I think Irina wanted to say something.
I want to compliment our police department also. They're wonderful.
Going back to the snow removal, which I think could also tie into the community watch / the lights being out. The Tompkins County has come up with an app called Snow Angels, and there is a lot that's going on in the chat right now. So I'm going to paste the link, but Luca and Diane have both said something that would like to be read out. But before we go back to them, there's that link there that essentially gamifies snow removal, and it connects able-bodied people to people who are snowed in and cannot clear their driveway. And it's kind of just like a little app that kind of makes it like Pokemon Go, where people who are able go do it and collect points and stuff like that. And I don't know the cost, and I don't know how they developed it, but maybe people who are elected officials could reach out and see if that could be implemented here. But we could maybe do that with our problem areas in general too, because Charles said that we get a lot of complaining online, but it finds our problems. So maybe the people that want to actually do something about those problems and not just complain would download the app that if we had it and be able to direct people resourcefully to it instead of just complaining and trolling online. But Laura, do you want to read Luca's thing, and then maybe I can read Diane's?
Sure, I'm ready. Okay, so this is from Luca Iorga. I think Owego has a wonderful opportunity to be a role model for positive police communication and changes. I admire the empathy behind, you guys are adding stuff on me. I admire the empathy behind Chief Kennedy's rationale for jailing drug offenders. It certainly merits an objective assessment as an intervention method, since it works for some individuals. However, based on several scientific studies, I believe that other methods are more effective at reducing long-term drug usage in communities. Obviously, there's no point to just debating back and forth, but considering the level of community concern around substance abuse, I would like to propose that we implement an outcome tracking survey to determine the best areas to focus on for intervention. It could be cooperatively organized between OPD, Owego for Equality volunteers, and existing community programs. Diane Werner is a resident on John Street. She says, I need to go because family commitments call, but I wanted to thank everyone for giving audience to us as a community. I have lived here since 2009, and I do not recall having had an opportunity quite like this before. If someone could read this out loud, I would appreciate that. Irina sent the link to the Snow Angels in Ithaca, which is provided in the link that people will be able to click on in the chat. And then Diane Werner says, also, I would be happy and honored to present a workshop for the officers and anyone else in the community about disability justice, equity, and accessibility. It's Wiener, guys, and she is a Syracuse University professor, and I am so thankful that she's offered her help for our police department and our community.
All right, does anybody have anything? We're gonna wrap up the meeting. This doesn't have to end here. We can always have more meetings.
I'd like to say something.
Oh,
it's Mike
okay.
Tavarni. First of all, I want to say to Irina and Luca, thank you for keeping things this summer peaceful. That is appreciated. As far as the bail reform goes, I'm going to make this quick. It is needed, but this catch or release that the governor has implemented is not the answer. And there is a big problem in this town and this county with drugs, something that has had very little comment tonight. I see a lot of, Broome County, Tompkins County, they all have a community narcotics enforcement team. And I know this is not a village issue, this is more of a county issue. Maybe the chief can get this started. Why doesn't Tioga County have a community narcotics enforcement team to maybe get some of these dealers out of here? We have a lot of drugs that come through this county to go to other counties. That needs to be dealt with. And I'm going to leave it at that.
All right, thanks, Mike. Chief, do you have anything about any of that?
Nothing that I agree with him, but nothing that I can go into comment on.
Right. Yeah, I know there's stuff in the works.
No,
all right.
And I fully support OPD and always have. So I've always, the whole time I've been in this village, I've known most of the officers. We got some new ones I don't know, but eventually I'll get to know them too.
Yeah, no, they're all great. Does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. And like I said, it doesn't have to end here. We can always do this again if there's.
And Mike, good morning. Oh, wait a minute, I got a serious echo here.
Yes, I'm here.
Mike Barney, I just want to thank you for attending tonight. We definitely miss you at our public meeting.
Well, I miss the meetings too. I hate these virtual things because you really can't see the people, and it drives me nuts. But a lot of the complaining people do online, they really need to get up off their butts and away from their computers and show up at a meeting. Just my opinion.
We agree with you, but then they're told to get a job.
I can't wait for COVID to end. I cannot wait for us to be getting the message out to residents to quicker. And then maybe a reminder when the meetings are, and especially now with virtual meetings, how they can actually tap in. Laura, thank you so much for doing that. People, especially older people, are so very intimidated by technology. And with virtual meetings, you're making the assumption someone has a phone or a computer. And once again, that goes to diversity. There are different socioeconomic classes in Owego. We are definitely a poor county in New York, and we have to recognize that. That's why our taxes are so hard for people to pay, and people don't like to see higher taxes. That's part of the reason. But also, you can't just assume that it's easy for a person to know how, an older person who has never done this before, not to take the simple time like Laura did to walk them through very easily how you do this, how you go about doing this. Let's make our meetings, virtual meetings, an important meeting like tonight on an executive order, which could lead, if we take it seriously, to future grants, not ones we already have, future grants that better, maybe even enlarge our police department because it's so desperately needed in our village. Our village has serious problems. Those problems are always changing, getting worse, getting better. COVID has added a whole new level of anxiety and mental health issues to residents who before would have never thought they would ever experience them. Our population's aging. Alzheimer's is becoming a factor. Knowing autism, and when you see someone having an episode, being able to read their body language because of training and know how to approach them and not approach them directly head on, not approach them coming from this side, but directly head on, could change a whole incident. There is so much possibility in taking such orders like this seriously, getting feedback, reminding people for feedback. WeBo is a great way for the older population, maybe, but when do these things run? Who knows? Maybe they don't have the radio on at that moment. The Penny Saver is a great way. We have a paper of record. We have a budget. We have what's called social media. And we have a website, an official website that should have all of these things up well before they happen. Thank you so much, OPD. I know what you do. You've been to my house 3 times for very serious calls, and I've only been home only a few months. And I don't want people being released either if they just keep burglarizing. I'm not advocating that. I never would. But I think we need to know in a more open fashion what's going on, how we can help, and maybe how we can help our community help itself in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I totally agree with you with the issue of technology. I needed my 14-year-old to help me set up my first Zoom meeting. So I totally understand.
So I don't know if Mike, you're looking at the chat, but there's a lot going on in the chat right now that's addressing both of this. Diane has had a lot to say about keeping the meetings digital, like hybrid meetings. I think the best way to promote equity is to have in-person meetings for the people who are unable to access the technology or who don't listen to the radio on the time, like Laura said, but also keeping Zoom as an option, or this is an option, because that addresses people who are differently able, who can't get to the meetings. It also provides public transparency because there's a record that is digital as well as the paper of record, so people can go back and refer to it if they can't come to the meeting. And Diane, I'm gonna paraphrase because I know we're running long here, but she recommends having a future meetings be captioned, which is so people can read them and not just listen in. I know that Zoom kind of does that on its own, but there's also another artificial intelligence captioning service called otter.ai. And I think if we kind of rolled these all into one, we would have more engagement with our community in terms of people who would show up instead of just complain if they, one, knew when it happened, and two, had a way to get to it that was accessible to them.
Yeah, so I will say, some of the reasons we use GoToMeeting over Zoom, are two different platforms. But in part of the executive order 202, whatever, that describes the virtual meetings, we have to do a word-by-word transcript, and GoToMeeting does that by itself. And it's also cheaper, is the other reason. And when this gets posted to our YouTube page, which will probably be tomorrow, if you go to that channel, you'll see all of our board meetings for the last 3 years, because we've been doing that for the last 3 years since we came in on the board. That was a big thing that I was a proponent of, was I couldn't always get out on Monday night because I had bowling league to go to the village board meetings, but I still cared about what's going on. So typically within the next couple of days after the board meeting, I posted up there.
Diane asks if the transcript could be shown on the screen, like during the meeting, not just after the fact, so people who are hard of hearing can also contribute and participate.
That's a good question. I'll check into that. I'm not sure, honestly.
I know at least, I work in academia, and Diane just mentioned this, and I think Laura said she works at Syracuse University, where ADA compliance is a big deal, American Disability Association. And I can tell you that right now we would not meet it. It's because it would not work for people who are differently abled in terms of hearing impairment. So I think, kind of like Luca said, being a role model of what communities can do better. Like we could be more inclusive even within these meetings. So yeah, I'll shut up.
I just wanted to add one other thing. I have a very, very rare form of lymphoma, and I'm shut in literally from October until possibly April because I'm not supposed to be in temperatures that are under 50 degrees. So even if I get in the car to drive to the meeting, I still am going to urinate blood after the meeting. I'm not unique in having disabilities like this. I am disabled. I'm classified as disabled because of this rare disease. And this is my point, is that we are a diverse population and there's an underserved population in our village, and we just need to be more aware of that, and we need to really take things like this seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. Does anybody else have any? We'll wrap this up. It's going kind of late. Does anyone else have anything?
Can I make a short comment, Mike?
Yeah, go for it, Fran.
I would suggest that these ladies that are talking about the different technology get together with you to help you set these programs up.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so in the chat, the ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. Diane Wiener says she is happy to help with setting up, hooking up the sound captioning for our meetings and more inclusivity. She is a disability studies professor. She would like the transcript to be shown on the screen. There are many social workers I know who would be happy to assist with mental health techniques. This is from Diane Wiener. I am also a social worker. An otter is what Zoom uses oftentimes.
Okay. All good comments and suggestions. All right. Well, we'll wrap up the meeting tonight and stay tuned for more. Thank you, everybody, for joining and participating tonight. Hope everybody has a good night, and looks like a little snow's in the forecast, but not much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Everybody stay safe.